Desperation was a big motivator for me to move from addiction to recovery. I guess I was just really kind of looking for a way out of that cycle of addiction and to try to escape some of that trauma and shame and things that I had been going through for the past however many years.
So I went to rehab quite a few times, and that's, I kept fighting, but I wanted it for the wrong reason at first. My family telling me, you need to do this or we're gonna, or the court system being like, hey man, if you don't get sober and stay sober, you're gonna go to jail. And I always ended up going to jail because it was never what I wanted to do. It had to get to the point where I was so desperate for something. I knew I had to either recover and stay sober or I was going to die.
Substance use disorder can affect anyone. It doesn't matter how privileged you are or how much that you have suffered during your life. It can hit any home and any family. And most people do know someone, whether it be a family member or a friend, who has struggled with a substance use issue.
My name is Suzanne Prentice, and I'm the coordinator of the Live Well Kalkaska Substance Free Coalition. And I'm also the prevention specialist for Kalkaska County with Catholic Human Services Up North Prevention. I'm on the executive board of Families Against Narcotics in Grand Traverse County, and I run the Stronger Together program. It can happen to any family. We were a church-going, middle-class, military family, and we thought we were doing everything right. And it just happened. It happened because of that first use. We have genetics as well. Well, personally for myself, my son was given an opioid medication at the age of 14, and he developed a substance use disorder as time went on. As a parent of someone with a substance use disorder, a lot of times you feel isolated, like you can't talk to anybody. You feel like you're always being judged, and as a parent, you judge yourself enough. And just like our children or our loved one that has a substance use disorder, they also judge themselves.
I think stigma has affected me in a lot of ways. In addiction, I lived in secrecy a lot. Like there was a lot of fear. I didn't really feel like I could tell anybody about it. And so I really had to, I had to live a double life. I had to kind of show up to family functions and show up to college and show up to work and pretend everything's fine. But on the inside and outside of those places, I was a really desperate person who was extremely addicted to a very strong substance. And so there's a lot of fear in letting people know that I had a problem. And I never felt like I could tell my employer what I was going through. Or I never felt like I could tell my teachers in high school or in college. And I never really felt comfortable to share that information with my parents. And I don't really feel that I knew the medical profession could do anything to help me either. So there's a lot of fear and a lot of secrecy that I feel was due to the stigma.
I think that having open, honest communication is the biggest thing. Doing stuff like this, not being afraid to sit in front of these lights and cameras and say, hey, I used to struggle with drugs and alcohol, but look at me now. I think that's the biggest thing, is just understanding that I don't think there's a whole lot of people that aren't affected by it to some degree. Maybe they don't struggle with drugs and alcohol themselves, but they have a family member who does, or they have a coworker who does, or they have somebody they've run across or they used to go to high school with that does, or unfortunately passed away from it. So I think just being willing for people that are in long-term recovery or even a week sober, being like, hey, this is where I'm at and I'm not ashamed of it. And I think that's going to go a long way in really breaking what that stigma does, and that's breaking that fear off. Really, it was being around people, to get from addiction to recovery. It was being around people that cared about me, learning that I was worth living a different life than I was living. That was the biggest thing, being told, hey, we love you, you're worth it, and you can change, because you're worth changing.
So for me personally, what's really important for the general community and public to know about substance use disorder is that we're talking about individuals, again, who mostly have a history with trauma, and they found a way to escape the pain, the suffering. And I think that for the general public, it's so important that they understand that each individual is an individual. It's a son, a daughter, a husband, wife, father, mother, niece, nephew, and that each individual needs to be considered as a person rather than, a labeled alcoholic or user or junkie. Our words are so important. They're so damaging, but at the same point, they can be that much healing as well. We learn how to communicate what we're thinking rather than just throwing it out there like there's another alcoholic, he's an addict. They need help. That's an individual. By the way, his name is Scott. His name is Bob, his name is Tom, her name is Meredith. Whatever their name is, they're an individual in there and they need help. Our responsibility as community members is to learn what are the resources, what can they do, who do they see, who do they talk to know that they don't live alone. And then the other thing that's really helpful, number two, is just to say to that addict or the alcoholic that is still suffering, simply say, I love you, I'm here, what can I do to help?
My life has been incredible. I've done a lot of things in the past 8 years. One of the big motivators for me to stay in recovery was the hope that I could give back to other people. And since getting into recovery, I've become a recovery coach. I'm a community health worker. So getting a job in the recovery industry where I can go back and help other people has been a huge motivator for me to stay in recovery. And then a lot of great things have happened since I've been in recovery, like I've restored my credit. I've made amends with my friends and family. I've made financial amends. I've volunteered in the community. I have a beautiful wife now, and we have a 4-year-old. I bought a house here in Manistee a couple of years ago. So, just really living life to its fullest and just exploring what life has to offer.
That we're different, and that's all we want as addicts. We don't want to be that way, that we do want change. We do want to better ourselves, and that it is possible.
Look at the successes from someone that has been touched by addiction and has lived such a painstaking life, and look at the ones that have made it, that haven't overdosed and died, on the other side of things. Non-judgment. It's really hard to be non-judgmental. So being open-minded and giving someone a chance and understanding that this is a disease and it's something that someone has to work through and completely change who they are and their thoughts and their behaviors. Just basically giving somebody a chance to be the person that they want to be. Because I don't believe I've ever met anybody that wants to be in active addiction and is happy.
One of my proudest moments in recovery was when I hit my year mark. I remember that the day I got to call my mom and tell her, like, hey, it's been a year, and just the joy that she had, that was one of the proudest moments for me. I think that this is fantastic, whoever it's going out to, I think that it's much needed, and I think doing videos like this and having a face to recovery is what's gonna break the stigma off of it, and seeing that people can change. Obviously you guys don't know what I was like when I was using, but I can tell you it's not the man that's sitting in front of you right now, not even close. So I would say anybody that's even thinking about it, there is hope. That's one of the biggest things. There is hope, and just grab onto it, even if it's a little piece. There's plenty to go around.